Have you ever taken a photo with your phone, maybe in a dark room or against a really bright sunset, and just been blown away by how good it looks? I mean, it almost feels like magic, right? Like that tiny little lens in your pocket is somehow just breaking the rules of physics. Well, it turns out it's not magic, but it is a revolution, and it's all powered by the incredible science of computational photography.
And that really gets to the heart of it. How do they do this? On one hand, you've got physics, which says tiny little cameras should take grainy, frankly pretty bad photos. But on the other hand, we have these brilliant, sharp images they actually produce. The answer is in this incredible fight where really clever software completely outsmarts the hardware.
So to really appreciate the solution, we first have to get our heads around the problem. And when it comes to cameras, the biggest problem, the fundamental issue, is size. Bigger is almost always better, and smartphone cameras are, well, they're incredibly small.
And the difference in size it's just dramatic. That big rectangle there, that's a professional full-frame camera sensor. And that tiny little square, yeah, that's what's in a typical smartphone. See, a bigger sensor can gather way more photons, more light, which gives you a cleaner signal. Your phone's tiny sensor is basically starved for light, and that leads directly to digital noise. You know, that grainy, speckled look you see in bad low-light photos?
And it's not just the sensor. The whole system is a massive compromise. The lenses are tiny, often made of plastic. The focal length can't really change much, and this is a big one. The aperture is fixed. A big DSLR can open and close its aperture to let in just the right amount of light. A phone camera, it's stuck wide open, all the time. That means it has to rely completely on software tricks to get the exposure right.
Now, traditionally, the brain of a camera is something called the image signal processor, or ISP. You can think of it like a little digital darkroom. It takes the raw data from the sensor and develops it into a picture you can actually see. It handles stuff like color, white balance, and some basic noise reduction. And for decades, that was fine. But to get around the hardware limits we have today, we needed something a whole lot smarter.
Okay, first things first, we have to tackle this huge misconception that marketing departments absolutely love, the megapixel myth. We've all heard it, right? More megapixels equals a better camera. Well, that's not just an oversimplification. A lot of the time, it's flat out wrong.
So what even is a megapixel? It's really just a measurement of quantity. 1 megapixel is 1 million pixels, those little light-capturing dots on the sensor. It tells you the resolution, how big the final picture can be, but it tells you almost nothing about the quality of the light that each one of those little pixels actually captured. And this quote it nails it. Pixel quality is so much more important than pixel quantity. Think about it. If you cram 200 million tiny pixels onto an already tiny sensor, each one is going to capture less light and create more noise. You just end up with a really high-resolution photo of noisy garbage.
Take a look at this picture. It's grainy, it's noisy, a classic low-light challenge. Now seriously ask yourself, if we made this a 200 megapixel file, would it fix any of these problems? Of course not. It would just be a much bigger file of the same bad photo. The issue here isn't resolution, it's the quality of the signal.
So here's the bottom line. More megapixels just give you a bigger picture. What actually makes a photo look good are things like better performance in low light, a wider dynamic range, and less of that ugly digital noise. The goal was never more pixels. It was getting better data from the pixels we already had.
And that brings us to the hero of our story. If the hardware is fundamentally limited, how do we get better data? The answer was this radical shift in thinking, all powered by software. This is the big breakthrough of computational photography, burst processing.
Here's the core idea, and it's brilliant. Your phone knows it can't capture one single perfect photo. The hardware just isn't up to the task. So it cheats. Instead of trying to take one great shot, it takes a super fast burst of many flawed, kind of noisy, underexposed shots the very instant you tap that shutter button. This whole process, which you see in systems like Google's HDR+, is just so logical. So first, it captures that burst of underexposed images. Why? To make sure it doesn't lose any of the detail in the bright parts of the scene, like the sky. Next, the software intelligently aligns all those frames, correcting for your shaky hands. And finally, it merges them. And this is where the real magic happens. By averaging them all together, all that random noise just cancels itself out. And by combining data from all the frames, the final picture gets incredible detail in both the dark shadows and the bright highlights. So you might be wondering, how is this merging even possible? Well, the secret sauce, is that the software isn't working with finished JPEGs.
It's going right to the source, working with the purest, most unprocessed data straight from the sensor itself, the raw data.
This right here, this is what the camera sensor actually sees. It's called a Bayer pattern. Each little pixel can only capture one color, red, green, or blue. By aligning and merging all this raw data before the camera has to guess what the missing color information is for every single pixel, the software gets a much cleaner result to work with. This is the high-fidelity information it needs to perform all its tricks.
And this brings us back to those huge megapixel counts. Turns out they aren't just for marketing after all. They enable this brilliant technique called pixel binning. In a nutshell, the software takes a little group of pixels on that 200 megapixel sensor, let's say a 2x2 square, and digitally combines all of their light information, treating them as one single giant superpixel. And this is the genius trade-off. You give up that headline-grabbing resolution you probably didn't need anyway, and in exchange, you get a massive boost in quality. That new superpixel is effectively 4 times more sensitive to light, which drastically improves low-light performance and cuts down on noise. It's basically how your phone gets to have its cake and eat it too. You get super high resolution when you need it and fantastic low-light quality when you don't.
Okay, so we've gone through the physics problem and the super clever software solution. Now let's look at the incredible results. This is where all that complicated theory turns into a beautiful photograph you can actually see. Just look at this. On the left, that's a single, noisy frame from the burst. See all that graininess? Now look at the right. That's the result after merging multiple frames. The random noise just disappears. It's canceled out, creating a much cleaner, sharper image. The software is literally creating a better signal out of noisy data. It's amazing.
And the effect on high dynamic range, or HDR, is even more stunning. You know that scene. You try to take a picture of someone standing in front of a bright window or a sunset. A single shot forces you to choose. Either expose for the person and the sky gets totally blown out, or you expose for the sky and the person becomes a dark silhouette. But look at the merged image on the right. It doesn't have to choose. It combines the data to hold all the detail in that bright sunset and in the dark shadows, creating this perfectly balanced image that a single exposure could never ever capture.
So the next time you tap that shutter button, just remember this. You're not just taking a picture. You are directing a high-speed photo shoot. In that tiny fraction of a second, your phone is capturing and analyzing dozens of frames, merging all that data and running it through this incredibly advanced pipeline to produce one single stunning image. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future, right? We've already moved from capturing a single moment in time to intelligently constructing an image from many different moments. As these AI models and software tricks get even more sophisticated, where do we draw the line? Are our cameras still capturing reality? Or are we teaching them how to create a perfected, idealized version of it? It's definitely something to think about the next time you snap that impossibly perfect photo.